Welcome to Pandas Nightmares. In today's video, you will hear some of the nicest things people have done but did not tell anyone. If you like my content, do like and subscribe as it will help me grow. I am creating content to try to raise funds for my dad's treatment. So if you want to support his ongoing battle, the GoFundMe link is in the description section below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And now let's get started. Enjoy. Story 1. I was day tripping to Vancouver from Seattle and stopped in for lunch at a little cafe. From my window I saw a young teenage girl out in the cold, squatted down in a closed-up business's doorway, holding a small bundle in her arms. She was panhandling. People were mostly walking by, ignoring her. She looked just broken. I finished up my meal and went outside, went through my wallet and thought I'd give her $5 for some food. I got up to her and she was sobbing. She looked like she was 14 to 15, and that bundle in her arms was a baby wrapped up. I felt like I just got punched in the chest. She looked up, putting on a game face, and asked for any change. I asked her if she's like some lunch. Right next door was a small quick trip type grocery store. I got a can of formula for the baby, very young, maybe 2 to 3 months old, and took her back to the cafe, though I'd just eaten. She was very thankful. Got a burger and just inhaled it. Got her some pie and ice cream. She opened up and we talked. She was 15, got pregnant, parents were angry and she was fighting with them. She ran away. She'd been gone almost 1 full year. I asked her if she'd like to go home and she got silent. I coaxed her. She said her parents wouldn't want her back. I coaxed further. She admitted she stole $5,000 in cash from her dad. Turns out $5K doesn't last long at all, and the streets are tough on a 15-year-old. Very tough. She did want to go back, but she was afraid no one wanted her back after what she did. We talked more. I wanted her to use my phone to call home, but she wouldn't. I told her I'd call and see if her folks wanted to talk to her. She hesitated and gave bad excuses, but eventually agreed. She dialed a number and I took the phone. Her mom picked up and I said hello. Awkwardly introduced myself and said her daughter would like to speak to her. Silence, and I heard crying. Gave the phone to the girl and she was just quiet, listening to her mom cry, and then said hello. And she cried. They talked. She gave the phone back to me. I talked to her mum some more. I drove her down to the bus station and bought her a bus ticket home. Gave her $100 cash for incidentals and some formula, diapers, wipes, snacks for the road. Got to the bus and she just cried, saying thank you over and over. I gave her a kiss on the forehead and a hug, kissed her baby, and she got on the bus. I get a Christmas card every year from her. She's 21 now and in college. Her name is Michaela, and her baby was Joe. I've never really told anyone about this. I just feel good knowing I did something good in this world. Maybe it'll make up for the things I've effed up. Story 2. This is a story about my father. I'm awakened by my mum around 1:30 a.m. Get up, there's a fire, we have to go outside, she says. I'm freaking out, but I don't smell smoke. I assemble outside with my mother and younger brother and sister. Down the street, a townhouse in the same row as ours is engulfed in flames. I don't see my father around, so I ask my mum. He went to see if he could help, she says. I can hear the nervousness in her voice. My father is known to be rather bold. The story, as it was told to me as an adult, goes like this. My father arrives after the fire department and learns that a man is alive inside, possibly lost. The FD won't go in after the man because they do not feel that it is safe yet. My dad is like, fuck that. And clad in only his long johns, breaks a window and enters the home. He finds the man at the top of the stairs, badly burned and unable to walk. He carries the man down the stairs and out the front door. The firemen treat my dad briefly for smoke inhalation, and the cops take a statement. The man he carried from the house died after a week in the hospital, but his family was grateful that he had a chance to say goodbye. The county awarded my dad a plaque, and Comcast gave us free cable for a year. He never talks about it, and it was so long ago that no one he knows is aware that it ever happened. About a week ago, my 5-year-old asked me if superheroes were real. I told him the story of the day his grandfather was a superhero, and I almost couldn't finish. I hope that one day my son will feel that kind of pride in me. Story 3. When I lived in the city, an older lady about 90 got robbed in my building. They went in and stole all her cash and took some valuables that she had. She did not have a bank account, so the thieves took about $3,000 the lady's life savings. She was afraid of being evicted for the APT because she wouldn't have the rent money and did not want to end up in a state-run nursing home. I called the landlord and paid her rent in full for the rest of the year, 5 months worth, and told the landlord not to tell her it was me. I also had groceries delivered to her once a week for the next 2 months, until she had some money saved from her social security checks. I never told anyone what I had done for her, and I don't think she even knew my name because the APT building had about 50 apartments in it. The landlord was the only one who knew, and he wanted to tell her what I was doing, but I told him that I would deny it. I did not want her to feel indebted to me. She posted a letter in the lobby of the building to thank whoever had helped her. I took the letter down and kept it. The landlord still writes to me every few months to tell me how she is doing. She is still living in the apartment 7 years later. I never told anyone. Story 4. I heard a fight outside my apartment one night. I looked outside and saw the fight, but couldn't tell if it was a man beating up a woman or a teenage boy. I couldn't find my glasses. I called 911 and told them what I saw. And while I was on the phone, the man started dragging the other person around the corner of the building. I told the operator that I couldn't see them anymore, and that I had to go. Contemplating bringing a weapon with me as I threw on shoes and pants, I decided it would be best to go barehanded. If the other guy had a gun or something, he would have already used it to subdue his victim. I ran outside and quickly scanned the area, and bam, there he was, on top of this woman. He had stripped her and thrown her clothes on top of an 8-inch hedge. He was about to rape her. I hollered at him to get up and told her to come stand behind me. It was January and she was naked and freezing. I quickly took off my coat and gave it to her, never taking my eyes off the guy. Now at the time I was in very good shape and probably looked a lot tougher than I do today. This was nearly 20 years ago. The guy looked like he might try to fight me, but I told him that I had called the cops and that they'd be here any minute, and that his best bet was to get in his car and get the hell out of there. I got his license plate as he drove off. The first thing the girl says is, "Can you get my underpants, please?" So I climbed the fence next to the hedge and got all her stuff. I let her go into my apartment and lock herself in the bathroom while we waited for the cops. Story 5. I was in a hurry and stopped at a gas station to fill up. While I was outside my car, a man came up to me and asked if I could spare a buck or two for gas. He, his wife, and his daughter were traveling but were broke and barely made it to the station. They had a broken-down old Volvo, and it was clear that they were vagabonds of some sort who lived in their car. The kid was at most 2 years old. I was pretty low on cash myself, but I thought, hey, what the hell? I could use some affirmation that people can be kind if I were in their situation. So I swiped my card at their pump and said, "Fill it up. Good luck to you and your family. I hope this can get you where you're going," and walked away. He started crying as I left, and I would have lost it too if I wasn't too proud to do so in public. To see a grown man cry like that, both for having received an unexpected gift and for having to be put in the position of begging to keep his family safe, was one of the most profound experiences of my life. I haven't told anyone until now. Story 6. One day I was on my way to a job interview when I saw a man crawling down the side of the road. About 100 yards away, I saw a car crashed into a tree and assumed that this man had been in that car. So I pulled over, got out of the car, and talked to the guy to make sure he was all right. He said he was, but clearly he wasn't. His injuries weren't life-threatening by any means, but he was scratched, bruised, disoriented, and old. I offered to take him to the hospital, but he wouldn't have it. He didn't have the money, he said, and with a little more prodding, eventually released that his niece is a nurse, and she could get him cleaned up. I asked him where she lived. It was about a 45-minute drive. I told him to get in my car, and I drove him there. Sure enough, his niece cleaned him up, and after some rest, he was okay. ... I missed my job interview. I never told anyone why I didn't get the job. Story 7. 2 years ago, I was walking into my local gym for my workout through the parking lot. As I approached, I noticed a car that had pulled halfway out of its parking space. Behind the wheel was a man in his mid-60s, evidently on his way to or from his workout. He was slumped over the wheel, clutching his chest. I knocked on the window and got no response. I opened the door and asked him if he needed help. He looked up at me, pale as a ghost, and mumbled, "I can't feel my arm. I think I'm having a heart attack." I ran into the gym and went to the front desk, told them the situation, and asked them to call 911 and get an ambulance immediately. The 3 people behind the desk fumbled through some corporate policy manual, attempted to call the gym manager, conferred with one another, and basically did everything and anything but pick up the damn phone and dial for help. I pretty quickly realized that these people weren't going to do anything helpful in time. I ran back out to the man in the car who was, if anything, even paler than before and was unable to verbalize. So, as gently but quickly as I could, I pushed him into the passenger seat, put his car in gear, and drove as fast as I could to the nearest hospital, which fortunately I knew the location of, running most every red light in the process, and also getting pursued by a police car, in front of whom I'd run several lights. I pulled into the ER at the hospital and ran in, telling the first nurse I saw that I had a man in the car undergoing a cardiac arrest. The staff rushed out with a gurney and transferred the man to it, while supplying oxygen and checking his vitals, and wheeled him inside with great haste. About this time, the police officer rolled up, and I explained the situation. Fortunately, he let me off. Unfortunately, I was too dumb to ask for a ride back to the gym, where I'd left my own car. So, I walked the 5 miles back, worked out, and drove home. About 8 weeks later, I was riding the recumbent bike in the cardio room when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I didn't recognize the person. Turns out it was the man from earlier, but a lot healthier looking. He told me his name was Lester, and he said, "You're the guy who took me to the hospital. The doctor told me if I'd arrived a few minutes later, I'd probably have been dead. You saved my life. I just wanted to say thank you." So, that made feel pretty nice. Other than the police pursuing me at the time, I never told anyone about this. Story 8. A couple of years ago, I was working late at Dublin Airport. Nothing much to do. I had to wait till the last plane came down, usually 2 or 3 in the morning. I had a radio with me, so I was just walking around, killing time. Many people sleep in the airport overnight, rather than travel there in the morning for early bird flights. Among these, I saw 2 Spanish girls, teenagers, one of them in obvious distress, with tears trickling down her cheeks. I asked what was wrong. Between their broken English and my even worse Spanish, we established that the crying girl had a painful kidney infection. When I explained that she would not be allowed to fly, because she was obviously in need of medical treatment, the trickle of tears became a flow. I advised her to get a taxi to the hospital and then taxi back, and she'd be in time for her 6:25 flight. Her problem: no cash. I wasn't exactly flush myself. However, I arranged a lift for them both to the hospital, made sure that their luggage was secured, and gave them enough for the taxi back from the hospital. I hope it worked out for them. Story 9. While walking through South Station in Boston, waiting 3 hours for a connecting train to Worcester, I met a beggar by the name of Fast Eddie. Fast Eddie was a rather hideous man, black as the ace of spades, teeth rotting out of his head from meth use, and without a pot to piss in. I have this habit of connecting with the dregs of society, since I myself have been not only homeless, but a criminal in the past. So he started by coming up to me and saying, "I bet you that I can tell you 3 things, if you'll give me $1. It was a 3-part riddle. Something about the state you were born in, a state of infancy, where you got your shoes. You got your shoes on your feet, and one other thing." I told him after he told me his riddle that unfortunately I didn't have $1. But I had a debit card and 3 hours to burn before I had to catch my train to Worcester, so I invited Fast Eddie out to lunch with me. I walked over 3 blocks with him to a restaurant called Shabu Zen. It's a delicious Chinese food restaurant that serves hot pot style cuisine. He ended up eating a lot, 3 platters of beef and 3 bowls of udon later. He started to loosen up a little bit. Turns out that Fast Eddie has a master's degree in economics. He lost his wife in a car accident 3 years earlier, and turned to drugs to kill the pain. What started out as weed and hard liquor turned into coke, meth, and speed. He was living in a homeless shelter and had nothing but the clothes on his back. He spent all his money panhandling on hookers, booze, drugs, and hotels to do the above. We sat for a while after we finished eating before we walked back to South Station. I asked him what he would do now if he had the chance to turn things around. Eddie looked right at me and said that he couldn't turn things around. He couldn't get over his losses. I asked about his family. His mom lives in South Carolina, from what he confessed, and his dad passed away 6 months before his wife. I asked him when the last time he talked to his mom was. He told me 3.5 years ago. I thought to myself about the amount of money that I had in my bank account. $650 was approximately what I had in my checking. Savings was pretty low too. I asked him if he had any interest in going home to see his mom and get out of the harsh New England winter. He told me time and time again that he couldn't go back to living with his mom. He was 34 years old and his pride couldn't take the hit. I pointed out to him that he was strung out on meth, and I want to put him on a bus back home so he can get better. He teared up as soon as I said it, and kept saying, "Thank you," as he hugged me. It was a long, somewhat awkward hug for me. Not because I didn't feel like I was doing what was right, but because I was doing what any decent human being would. Before I put him on the bus, I cashed out all but $40 of my checking account, and went to a few stores to get him some respectable clothing. He ended up looking a lot more human once he shaved, washed up, and got into some clean clothing. I pulled out my cell phone and told him to call his mum, and to tell her that he's coming home. The phone call lasted a little over 20 minutes, which made me end up missing my train. I didn't really care at this point. I knew that even if this man went back to drugs, that for this brief moment, he was happy. I put him on that bus, February 23rd, 2005. I got a letter with a picture 6 months ago. It was Fast Eddie, his mum, his and their newborn child in the picture. In with the letter was a note. It read, "Once, you told me that if I ever needed help, you were just a call or a letter away. Now I'm writing you to tell you that it was your help that has saved me from myself. God bless you." It went on into more personal details about his old meth habits, his new girlfriend, his relationship with his mum, his new job, and his new life. I've never told anyone this because I don't see it as doing anything spectacular. I bought someone lunch, a bus ticket to go home, new clothing, and let him call his mum. I don't see why we, as people, can't be more civil to those in need. Sometimes there is infinite potential right behind a broken smile. Always pay it forward. Story 10. When I got my settlement check for getting my finger cut off at work, I kept $2,000 and put the rest in the bank. That night, after dinner and drinks, I was coming home and saw a homeless man, 25 to 30, that I've seen several times before, posted up against a wall near the intersection, shivering in the cold. Since there were 3 hotels at that intersection, I stopped, rented a room for a week on my debit card, then took the key out of the envelope, replaced it with $1,700, and walked over to the gentleman to hand him the key in cash. No bullshitting. I saw him a month or so later, working at a gas station, clean, shaved, and nice hair. I'm not sure if he recognized me, but I'm glad because I recognized him, and he appeared to be happy and doing well, which said enough. I haven't seen him in several years, but I like to think he's back on his feet. Maybe a family, a house, whatever really, but just doing well. That is all for today. If you have enjoyed this video, do like and subscribe and let me know below of your thoughts. If you want to help in my dad's fundraiser, I would truly appreciate it. Hope you have an absolutely amazing day. You can also check my other videos on screen.